Let's talk about it. But first, I do want to mention we are doing so many videos, so many live streams of off-season previews. We are almost done. We have this one and the Phoenix Suns to do, and then we have all 30 teams. If you have yet to check out any of them, feel free to go do so. Feel free to subscribe to the channel, comment, like the videos. We're going to have a lot of coverage of the NBA draft and of free agency coming up this upcoming August. All right, let's go into the Jazz here. So obviously the big situation with them is, they lose the Clippers. There was the defensive issues there in Game 6 that was really suspect, where Rudy Gobert becomes a liability in the situation. Now, again, he's not a liability against every team in the NBA, but he's a liability when you decide to go 5 out. It's hard for him to be able to go on the perimeter and guard. However, I will mention this. The other perimeter defenders on the Jazz have to be better. Donovan Mitchell has to be better. Bojan Bogdanovic has to be better. Joe Ingles, as old as he is, like he just looked totally outgunned as far as athleticism goes against the Clippers. Jordan Clarkson is not known as a great defender. So they need to figure out, you don't need a lockdown defender, but you need guys that can be able to defend, be versatile, and still be threats to score in their own right, even if it is kind of in a smaller way. Obviously, looking at the cap sheet here, we'll talk about Mike Conley here. So Conley, it sounds from all the reports, it sounds like Mike Conley is going to return to Utah, and that the Jazz will do whatever they can to bring Conley back. So that is a huge priority. I personally see the Utah Jazz making a move where Conley is like one of the first signings we hear about. I think it's that quick, right? Clarkson and Favors, I think, were both guys that were. They're both guys that definitely they got signed pretty early. Last season? Yeah, last season. Favors and Clarkson, they're just right off the bat. So the Jazz knew, like, we're getting our guys, keeping our guys, move forward. So I don't think there's any funny business that goes on. I don't know if we get to day 2 or 3 or 4 with Conley and we still don't know where he's going. I think it's going to be taken care of just like that. I think he likes Utah, and that will take a point guard off the market, and the Jazz will bring back their all-star last season. So Rudy Gobert obviously was assigned to his extension. A little worrisome. His money is very, very high, and it'll be interesting to see kind of where he's at in a year or two, because you hope, if you're a Jazz fan, that that he's continuing to produce through these years when he's making big money. He was injury prone, like at the beginning of his career and when he was playing more minutes, but now he's kind of cooled off of that. So you hope for good health and move on from there. I do want to talk about potential trade pieces here. The pieces, there was a rumor that came out talking about how Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, Derek Favors, a little bit of Royce O'Neal, they could be on the move. They could most definitely be on the move. I don't know exactly what out there in the trade market is there for the Jazz. Like Harrison Barnes, is Harrison Barnes a big upgrade for than Bojan Bogdanovic? Maybe, but why would Sacramento take Bojan? It's just they're in a weird spot. Joe Ingles does provide some interest, I feel like, from other teams. Like his $13 million isn't horrible, and could you attach that and a pick, to a team that wants a guy who can handle the ball, shoot a little bit, and at the very least, even if at the very worst in the playoff series, he can be a knockdown shooter for a team. So Ingles obviously is a huge trade bargaining kind of chip. However, the team values Ingles. He's a fan favorite. The Jazz were kind of the ones that gave him the opportunity to really thrive in the NBA. He had kind of bounced around with some other teams, but he thrives with Utah. Fans love him. It's going to be hard to see them trade him if they do. Favors is the next guy who I think is most definitely going to be the dude who is going to be traded. In order to bring back Mike Conley, because they're so into the luxury tax, they have to shed some salary. They have to. If they don't, they're facing such a high luxury tax bill, and it's going to be really hard for them to kind of operate. And do they want to bring everybody back and be way into the luxury only for it to end differently? I think Favors, betting on Favors to be moved is a smart bet at this point. let's talk about, they also have an unrestricted free agent of George Niang. Niang was kind of their ninth man off the bench. He was definitely really solid for them during the regular season, but in the playoffs, he just was like almost unplayable. I remember watching some of their games. Niang comes in and just makes poor plays. You hate the Niang minutes in the playoffs, like even in the Memphis series, even like obviously for sure in the Clippers series. He's just not super athletic. He's a really good shooter. I think he's a good passer as well. He's a smart player, but I just don't know exactly like if you want to stick with him. If you're going to be a contending team, is George Niang as your kind of ninth man? Is he the guy? Like, does that work? So, yeah, we'll see. I doubt he goes back to Utah. Jazz own the 30th pick. Again, they don't want guaranteed salary on their team, so they're probably going to trade the 30th pick, and we'll probably hear a deal of that sometime on draft night and all. And because I think that's just what's going to happen with the team. In order to avoid more luxury tax money, they will have to move favors, move the pick. I think those are things we could see tomorrow. And they could stockpile. And is there a team that wants to move into the first round, like maybe Brooklyn or something? Like, would they sacrifice a lot of picks in the second round to be able to move up to 30? We'll see. Utah is also, their cupboard is like just gone. It's just empty when it comes to second round picks in the next few years. I didn't know this, but looking at their kind of looking at the trades they made, they had a couple of years ago, they had a draft where they had all these second round picks and they were like trading seconds to get these second round picks. It was just really weird. I think one of them was a Clarkson from the Jordan Clarkson trade. But looking at their picks moving forward, they own a majority of their picks moving forward. However, there is the Memphis situation that does need to convey. Obviously, if it's 1 through 6, Utah will keep it. As you can see on the screen, 1 through 3 in 2023, they'll keep it. If it's the number 1 pick overall in 2024, they'll keep it. I am sure that this pick conveys next year, and then the Jazz will have all their picks. So super interesting. However, they can't trade 2023 and 2024 because it still is technically owned to Memphis. So this is like, it's a little worrisome because you start saying, okay, well, the Jazz, as an organization, we don't have our picks. So, like we can't make a deal. The Jazz can't make a deal for like one of the big play guys like Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal because they just can't trade 23 and 24 in those years. So they're owed to Memphis essentially. Let's talk about some Utah Jazz rumors before finishing with them and then moving on to the Phoenix Suns. Again, report from Tony Jones of The Athletic. Mike Conley is likely to return to the Jazz. Again, I think this is something, it could be very well the very first thing we hear when free agency opens. I think it's going to be something that is taken care of relatively quickly. The Jazz take care of it, move forward. Let's move off of Conley here. Again, virtually all of the biggest contracts belong to the productive rotation players. So if the club wants to trim salary, it may come at a cost of a regular season contributor. The Jazz have reportedly explored trades involving Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles, and Derek Favors. Multiple reports have suggested the team could end up attaching the 30th pick to Favors in a cost-cutting deal. Favors' contract is worth 2 years, $20 million. Isn't especially unwieldy, but it's possible the Jazz could get less expensive rotation player back in such a deal. Though that is just this guy's speculation. So the Jazz are high on Elijah Hughes, who is a second rounder that they got a while back from Syracuse. They also do like Miles McBride, Ayu Dosunmu, and Nishan Highland if they're picking at 30. I don't know if they will pick at 30. Again, I think they're moving back. I think they're probably focusing on some second round guys. And interesting thing about Utah is that there have been reports about how the Jazz are like really, really secretive with their picks or with their workouts for the draft this year, which is more than what they usually are. So that's interesting a little bit. But the Jazz are interesting. Ultimately, I do see the team kind of bringing Conley back and then trying to figure out kind of the 8th and 9th man of their team next year. I think if they do trade Joe Ingles, they'll have to trade for another bench guy. but they're, it'll just be really interesting to see what they do here. I see a scenario where they kind of bring everybody back and everything's all good to go. But I also see a scenario where they do make some minor moves, but it does come to the expense of like some of these rotational pieces, like what was written. So that's the Utah Jazz breakdown. Again, if you like the video, comment on it. I'll definitely interact with you. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and check out all the other videos. We have one more offseason preview to do, and it's the Phoenix Suns. Then we'll have all 30 teams have an offseason preview, about anywhere from 9 to 10 minutes for most of them. But yeah, again, we're going to end the stream. We got one more Phoenix Suns coming up, and let's get to it.